Welcome to the special meeting of the County Plan Committee, taking place on today, Tuesday, the 26th of July 2022. I am Councillor Alan Bell and I'm chairing today's meeting. The meeting will be broadcast live through our YouTube channel. Before we commence with today's formal business, I would like to cover some of the housekeeping issues for us all to follow. Could I ask everyone to switch off or make silent their mobile phones, please? Please keep microphones switched off at all times unless invited to speak by the chair. When invited to speak, please switch on the microphones nearest to you and introduce yourself. We have a number of officers with us this morning who I will now ask to introduce themselves, starting with Ian Croft over on my right.
Ian Croft, Democratic Services.
Neil Carter, I'm the solicitor to the committee.
Andrew Inch, Strategic Development Manager.
Graham Blakey, Principal Planning Officer.
Claire Teasdale, Principal Planning Officer.
Phil Harrison, Highways.
Okay, thank you everybody. Item number 1 is apologies for absence. Do we have any apologies for absence for today's meeting?
Yes, Chair, we have apologies from Councillors Hunt, Molloy and Richardson.
Thank you, Ian. Item number 2 is substitute members. Do we have any substitute members in attendance?
Yes, Chair, we have Councillor McGaughan for Councillor Hunt, Councillor Madison for Councillor Molloy and Councillor Holmes for Councillor Richardson.
Thanks again, Ian. Declarations of interest. Does any members have a declaration of interest on the business on today's agenda? No. Applications to be determined. Reference DM/20/02519/FPA, which is Lince Hall Farm, Lince Lane, Burnhamfield. The first application today is a proposed temporary permission for the use of 2 agricultural buildings as an event space for 30 days per year and installation of associated car park and hard standing areas at Lince Hall Farm, Lince Lane, Burnhamfield. We have 2 registered speakers for this item and a representation from the local member. I'll now ask Graham Blakey, Principal Planning Officer, to present the report, which is at pages 3 to 22 of your papers pack. Over to you, Graham.
Good morning, Chair. Thank you very much. Hello, everybody. Yes, this application is for a temporary period of 5 years within this as well that's been proposed. And it's worth noting that the event space is to be used for no more than 30 days in a calendar year, with any events not being held on consecutive days. So, for example, Thursday, Saturday, Monday would be the programme and pattern in that. Here we have a map of the site. The application site is entirely highlighted in red. It sits south of the B6310 between Burnhamfield on the east and Hampstead Mill to the west and forms part of a complex of buildings associated with the Lince Hall Farm. The farm occupies the gently falling valley slopes of the River Derwent in the far north and sees Dipton and Flint Hill occupy higher ground to the south. Lince, part of the wider village of Burnhamfield, sits atop a plateau 400 metres to the east of the site and sits above the site at roughly 40 metres in elevation. Public rights-of-way skirt the southern boundary of the application site, but more generally crisscross this valley side in this location. An aerial photograph taken recently shows that the development in its present form. Car parking is clearly laid out at the northern part of the site, with intermediate landscaping strips between the parking areas, together with buildings at the southern end of the site. The larger of the 2 buildings, sitting to the north, shows a block of hedgerow planting around the building, which is now mature and planted as part of the landscaping scheme at the time of its construction. The smaller of the 2 buildings sits across a hard-standing area to the south, beside a small equestrian arena immediately to its west. That particular building presents an open area on its elevations to the field to the east, which we'll see shortly. Nearest properties can be seen at Priestfield Farm to the north of the site access, Lambton Gardens, which is the area to the east, and Lince, which you can just see on the right-hand side of the photograph, and off-screen to the northeast is Rose Cottages, which sit onto the B6310 on the way out of Burnhamfield. Some photographs here showing the main building and associated landscaping mounds, just giving an idea of how the site undulates down from the valley. the hardcore area within the landscaping around the main building, which you can see on the middle photograph at the bottom. The open-sided building is the second building, see at the top right, which gives access to the east and north, and the car parking area on the bottom right corner. Finally, we have a wider landscape photo taken here from the nearby Don Biagio Italian restaurant, close to the Mount Set crematorium on the 692, I think it is, between Dipton and Burnhamfield. This shows a complex of buildings in the middle distance on the left-hand side. It also shows the level differences generally across the site and up to the east where Linz resides. In terms of the application, a total of 48 representations were received. The majority of these were in objection to the proposals. Some of the areas of concern included the following. Highway safety concerns from the additional traffic upon a rural narrow road with access to the site, the state of the current access and its poor state, and existing issues with HGVs which are associated with the main business on site of egg production. Noise issues as a result of late evening disturbance from prolonged excessive noise that occurred from past events. Light pollution and air pollution from attractions and visiting vehicles have also been experienced by residents. Ecological and wildlife impacts upon hedgerows, local wildlife and general biodiversity from the proposed development, as well as the landscape visual harm from the new development in the countryside, particularly the car parking area. There are also associated impacts experienced, such as litter and antisocial behaviour, owing to the times of the events. Some further comments were made highlighting the types of events, what type of events were being held at the site, the lateness of some of that activity into the night, and how visitor supervision would be undertaken. All of these and the planning arguments are outlined in detail in the report before members. So, in summary, this application proposes the repurposing of 2 agricultural buildings for event spaces and visitor attractions. Noise impacts have been experienced from past events, which have been a factor in formulating the recommendation to members, and it is officers' view that these can be controlled by way of condition. Permission is sought for a temporary period of 5 years, whereby the buildings would only be used for 30 days in a calendar year and not on consecutive days. It should be noted that separate planning legislation exists which can allow the use of the surrounding land and fields for up to 28 days in a calendar year under the General Permitted Development Order. Members may have seen this in the form of car boot sales in their local areas, etc. Landscaping scheme proposed to reduce the visual impact of the newly built parking area, and ultimately, as a result, officers' view is that the County Durham plan does give support in principle to new visitor attractions, and it's considered in this case that this outweighs the visual amenity harm from the proposals, which is controlled by way of condition, and the temporary nature of the proposals. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Graham. Local members, I think Councillor Mulholland isn't here today, but I do believe we had representation from him. Ian, do you have that?
Yes, Chair. This is Councillor Mulholland's representation. Previous events that have taken place have resulted in several residents raising their grave concerns with regards to the road safety surrounding the area in which the events take place. The B6310 is a very narrow road which during usual traffic flows can be difficult to traverse. When events were being held at Linz Hall Farm last year, the increased traffic through the B6310 and subsequently Burnfield Front Street caused a great concern to residents. At the time the events were being held, I raised concerns that I had received from residents which I believe were considered by the relevant departments of the Council, and as a result, temporary speed reductions were implemented. I have received concerns in relation to this planning application, citing the issues surrounding increased traffic, speeding and road safety in the area. I ask that these concerns are considered earnestly when considering this application.
Thank you for that, Ian. We have 2 registered speakers, as mentioned earlier. The first to go is for an objection is Catherine Beatty. Catherine, can you address the committee, please? You have 5 minutes, and the clerk will inform you when you have 1 minute remaining. Thank you.
I am here today as one individual to represent the 46 voices that objected to this planning application. Residents have found that due to the noise emitted from the events held at Linz Hall Farm, they are not able to come home and relax in the sanctuary of their own surroundings when these events are on. As an example, we have to close all the internal doors to the back half of our home to reduce the noise we can hear and restrict our residency to the front half of our home. Our most recent noise complaint to the Council regarding the events that took place in 2021 has not even been dealt with, despite being resubmitted in May this year. And the most recent noise management report does not take into account the outdoor discos that are being held as part of the events and which are causing us the most noise disturbance. Residents next to the B6310 have seen an increase in traffic during the Psychopath and Big Blaze events in October and November, and then again in December when Gibbside National Trust used the site as additional parking for their Christmas at Gibbside event, which ran from November 26 to January 2nd, with the exclusion of a few dates. This saw any visitors to the event between 5:15 to 7 p.m. at peak commuting time being directed to drive past Gibbside through Burnopfield to then park at Lints Hall Farm and to then be shuttled back to Gibbside via bus and then vice versa on their return journey. When I contacted Gibbside about this, they cited limited parking on site. Anyone who's visited Gibbside will know that the parking is ample after improvements have been made in recent years. The X70 bus route that runs through the heart of Burnopfield has recently been axed. This will increase the need for visitors to use private vehicles to get to and from future events, thus resulting in increased traffic, air pollution and noise disturbance to levels not seen in previous years. The proposed access plan does in no way address that visitors, fairground rides and vendors all still have to come along a narrow and winding B road and with a lack of pavement or lighting for any pedestrians. During the 2019 Psychopath event, organisers announced on their Facebook page that 20,000 plus tickets now sold, and that the final phase was almost sold out. Our village does not have the infrastructure to support well over 1,000 visitors a night. The numbers for the 2021 events will have exceeded this as the organisers kept adding additional dates, plunging residents into a total of 19 nights of disturbance. As food and drinks vendors are based on site, the events are not supporting the local economy of restaurants, pubs and shops within Burnopfield and the wider County Durham area. Littering around the site entrance and adjacent verges has been an issue. The organisers took no urgent steps to make sure litter was cleared after events from this, with this eyesore still present at the end of December 2021, as well as the obvious environmental problems associated with this. If you were to Google search Burnopfield right now, you would see a map displaying the location of our village and the word Psychopath presents Fairground next to it. Are the words psycho and fear really ones we want to associate with our village? In conclusion, it cannot be denied that the events are unique, but a more suitable location should be found that has better access, is located further away from residents, and is not in an area of high landscape value and environmental importance that supports our diverse wildlife. The event organises 700 acres, which includes co-founders of Newcastle nightclub Tup Tup Palace, have had the chance over the past two events to prove that they can manage events responsibly, with minimal disturbance and impact to residents and the surrounding countryside. This has not been the case. Furthermore, as the planning application is being submitted retrospectively and as events have already been held on site for 2 years, the proposed 5-year temporary permission in the report conclusion should include the 2 years the applicant has already had. With high-profile planning applications in the media, such as Jeremy Clarkson's application to turn an old lambing shed into a restaurant and create a 70-space car park on his farm, which was rejected by West Oxon councillors due to residents' objections and the inappropriate natures of the site close to a quiet village, I would hope that the councillors of Durham also listen to their residents.
Thank you, Catherine, for that. Our next speaker in support of the application is Amelia Robson. Amelia, you have 5 minutes, and Ian the clerk will also let you know when you have 1 minute remaining. Thank you.
Chair, thank you for the opportunity to speak on behalf of the applicant Richard Tulip at Lints Hall Farm in support of these exciting proposals. Richard is on holiday and unable to attend. He has asked me to make this statement on his behalf. The proposal seeks to regularise the use of 2 agricultural buildings at Lints Hall for the incredibly successful Psychopath and Fairground events. It is encouraging that officers support our proposals and have delivered a recommendation for approval. The proposal allows for a seasonal visitor attraction which takes place in October and November. Policy 7 of the local plan recognises that the visitor sector is an important resilient part of the county's economy. This proposal will contribute significantly to the visitor economy. The events provide much-needed part-time employment for local people, especially those aged 18 to 24. The amount of part-time employees depends on the amount of visitors to any particular event, but for the larger events, the applicant can expect to employ 100 members of staff, including actors and entertainers. There are few winter attractions within County Durham, as evidenced by the Durham Tourism Management Plan, which states that one of the aims is to address seasonality. This proposal would contribute to addressing seasonality by providing an event which takes place in the winter. The events proposed provide a visitor attraction for local people and those travelling from further afield. The Halloween events have been running for a couple of years as the North's largest screen park. The events are truly unique and include spectacles which create immersive experiences for visitors, such as stage shows, which include magicians, aerial acts, and other performers. The events include street food, bars, and carnival games for all of the visitors to enjoy. The events take place around Halloween in October, mostly scheduled for Friday and Saturday evenings. Planning permission is sought for the temporary use of 2 agricultural buildings only. Permitted development rights allow for events to operate outside for up to 28 days of the year with no restrictions. The proposals could operate wholly outside in the open without restrictions such as opening hours being put in place. However, the applicant wishes to regularise the events which take place and in doing so accept conditions which relate to management plans as well as highways signage improvements. The temporary use of the buildings is proposed to be for a period of 5 years, which is controlled by a condition attached to any permission. The proposal includes a car park which is currently in place, as you have seen. As part of the application process, an independent traffic survey was undertaken during the events which took place last year. This allowed for accurate traffic flow measurements to be taken. Following extended consultation with the local authority highways officer, a revised access and exit point was established and appropriate signage is proposed. It is demonstrated and agreed by officers that the proposed highways arrangement ensures that there would not be an impact on highway safety. The application also includes extensive noise monitoring of the events which took place last year. The results of this monitoring, along with an event management plan, have been reviewed by the Nuisance Action Team. It is recognised that the temporary nature of the proposals ensures that any impact on neighbours can be monitored. Appropriately worded conditions have been recommended to control hours of operation amongst other matters. The applicant is happy to agree to conditions which limit any potential impact on neighbouring residents. It is demonstrated and agreed by officers that the proposal would provide a visitor attraction within the county in the winter months, which provides benefits to the local economy in accordance with the aims of national policy and Policy 7 of the County Durham Local Plan.
You have a minute left.
Thanks. The proposal is for a 5-year temporary permission for events which would take place over 30 days of the year, which do not run consecutively. Any potential impacts from the scheme have been carefully considered, and due to the temporary nature and list of conditions, any impact is considered to be managed. The proposal allows for an established, successful and unique event to continue to operate with additional restrictions put in place via condition. We respectfully request that members approve the application today. Thank you.
Thank you, Amelia, for that. Graham, have you got anything further to add on that? No. All right, we open it up to the committee now. Will any of the committee have anything, any questions or anything to say on that application? Yes, Mike.
Thank you, Chair. Just got a couple of queries, really. Obviously, the objectors, big concern that there's, they've already submitted complaints and haven't been dealt with. But clearly, that's a separate story. The 5 years, does that include the 2 years retrospective? Would be a question. So does the 5 years that they're adding, does that include the 2 years have already been operating, because this is retrospective? So that would be a question. The second one would be, it's saying in the paperwork that it's located on the bus route. Yet the objectors are saying that the bus no longer runs there. And thirdly, does a bus go past there? Because that's what the paperwork's telling me. So I think we've got to congratulate the applicants on their innovation, that they're providing a service, a good service as well. But I would just like those points to be raised. In particular, the fact that it's retrospective to what's been happening for the past 2 years as far as planning's been going. What have we been doing? And does it include, this 5 years? Are we talking about, right, you've been running for 5 years, you've been running for 2 years, so you're getting 3 more years. And as I say, the bus route. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for that, Mike. Graham, I'm going to ask you, Sab, I think is the previous 2 years, has that been a permitted development and a new application now?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Picking up on the points that the Councillor McGordon raised, the environmental health issue, I've spoken directly with the person involved with that. I've taken that up with environmental health, so we're working on that in the background. It's symptomatic of, you'll note the reference date on the application being a 2020 application. It's something that we've been working on significantly with the applicant to draw back on that. And events did take place during the course of the application, and we did get complaints as the back of that. So I'm trying to find out whether that's been twin-tracked or there has been an issue there. So that one's in hand, if you like, behind the scenes. With regards to the condition and the 2 and 5 years, it doesn't include that. So if members were to follow the recommendation, that would be for an additional 5 years. They do have the gift within their power to amend that particular condition to, say, 3, so we have the balance. So I'll leave that one with your members to decide. And then with regards to the bus route, I'm just having a little look. I think obviously there's been a lot of consultation with Go North East, the provider in the area. They're looking to sort of pull back on some services. The report was obviously wrote in advance of the committee, so if that's something that's changed and been formalised recently, I think it may even be this week. I think the timetable's changed. Then yeah, we'll try and find an answer for that quickly while we're chatting through the rest of it. But initially, at the point of application and during the vast majority of the assessment, the X70 was a bus that went past the site access, and we did form a small part of the considerations in this. But we need to balance that off against the type of attraction that we're dealing with, and where the vast majority of people who will be attending this will be, the high level of taxis as well, with regards to that. So something to bear in mind, but I'll do a little bit of research while we continue. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Graham. Any further questions? Yes, Carl, over to you.
Thanks, Chair. It's obviously, I think the starting point for this is that, I didn't need to declare this as an interest, but I have attended this event before as a paying customer several years running. I think when we're looking at diversifying the offer to bring people into the county, this is an attraction that is not just of regional significance, but looking at it and looking at how it's evolved, it's of national significance. There's not many others, one I believe, in the whole country that offers the same sort of amenity at this time of year. I think you've got to, as with anything, you've got to balance the benefits of having an attraction like this against the impact on local residents. And clearly, I think my concern is that the applicant could choose to run the event as a wholly outdoor event, as it did in the early days, without any regulation from the authority at all. And I think it's positive that the applicant is engaged with the council, and we're able to have a greater say over the management of the event, not just through the council's safety advisory group process, but also through conditions on a planning application, which give us a lot more legal status to be able to enforce those conditions. I think for me, when you take a step back and look at this, you couldn't run this type of event on a brownfield site. It needs to be sort of far away to try and minimise the impact on local residents. And I would hope that through the conditions that have been suggested, that would begin to limit some of the impact. Although unfortunately, I don't think we're ever going to completely alleviate that. And I think on balance, I think the benefits to the local economy, I know many people who work here seasonally over the events, It's a really, really important source of income to those people in the build-up to Christmas. And I think for me, looking at the report, looking at the 5 years of conditions, it gives us an opportunity to review them at the end of the 5 years and also to enforce any non-compliance. But I think more importantly, it gives us the legal status to have ongoing conversations with the operator of the event, because I think when you look at the economy in County Durham, it does add something different, does bring tourists in. There'll be a lot of people who benefit from this venue and this event, so I've got no problem in moving that we accept the recommendations as outlined in the report, Chair.
Thank you for that, Carl. Patricia, apologies, I did miss you on the first time round there. Over to you, thank you.
Yeah.
Patricia, could you put your mic on, please?
I would like to ask about the noise nuisance plan. It seems very comprehensive in there, but noise nuisance plans are only as good as who monitors them and whether they are adhered to. And I would like some sort of confirmation that they are going to be adhered to as says in here. And also the access, has that been dealt with? It's been mentioned, and I'd like to know if that has been dealt with or if it's going to be dealt with.
Thank you, Patricia. Graham, can you come on that one?
Thank you very much, Chair. Yeah, just to come back on the bus thing, initially we've done some digging there. There's 3 buses that run through that area, X70, 71 and 72. The X70, which runs via Ebchester, is the one that's been culled from the list, and the 71 or 72, one of those two, goes down from Medhamsley down into Hampstead Mill and back up past this site into Burnfield. Looking at the timetable changes, they're still due to operate, so there's an hourly service into the evening on that. With regards to the noise, Councillor, yes, there's a comprehensive list in there. There's a lot of backwards and forwards in getting this management plan in place. There's a requirement before every event to take a measurement at 17 metres from the stage, for example, for amplified music. Those types of things, the requirements in there. If they don't adhere to it, we've got our powers of enforcement. And I think, obviously, we'll find out whether we do monitoring ourselves or whether we do that via any complaints that are received, then that's fine. Worth noting that anything that takes place outside of the buildings on the land won't fall under the planning remit, which is why we've got no controls in there, but we do have environmental health controls. So we'll be working closely with colleagues on that and advising the applicants to say, look, we've had issues with this in the past. Let's look at how we can best take this forward if you want to succeed in bringing the venture into a more permanent solution, because this is all temporary. And I think that's ultimately another part of this. Keeping it temporary is one of those powers of controls. You have to come back to planning to seek either an extension of that temporary nature or to go permanent. And if we can't resolve any complaints, then that's going to be a factor in our decision at that point. In regards to the access, the current access is unmade. It's a dirt track with potholes and things in. It has poor visibility down westwards away from the site. It's been measured up and it's going to be moved to the east to give enough visibility for the 60-mile-an-hour speed limit that's there. It'll be formalised with curb routes and other things. So this will be formalised. It'll be in place regardless of what members do from regards to any new permissions down the line, and it should bring a benefit to this and any future use from the site. So there's a time limit on that to bring that into play. If members want to look at that, they're again within their gift to do so. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for that, Graham. Any further comments? Yes, Bill, over to you.
Thank you, Chair. I agree with my colleague, Councillor Marshall, regarding bringing major events into the area, and certainly around the build-up to Christmas. However, I think we have to have some respect for the people who have to put up with these events. And I was very concerned when the person speaking said that they raised an objection in 2019, or was it 2020, and they hadn't had a response. Not very good. I'd like to, if this committee can reinforce that the residents are replied to and the findings are made public. As far as the temporary nature, I think it's brilliant that the council have the opportunity to have an input into the safe and better management of the event. That's no disrespect to the organisers, but my concern is it's retrospective and they're asking for 5 years and they've had it for 2 years, so they're asking for 7. My only thought would be, is it possible, and you said it was within the gift of this committee, to make this temporary measure 3 years? That would give it the 5. That would give 3 years so the local authority and the event organisers and residents can get together to make it a successful event, or a more successful event, for everyone, to everyone's satisfaction. That's the only thing I would add, Chair. Could we bring that 3 years rather than 5? Thank you.
Thank you for that, Bill. So you're moving that?
Yes, sorry, Chair. Can I move that?
And you second that, Mike? Okay. Craig?
Craig Martin, Councillor for North Lodge and Chester Street. But before I back this amended sort of change from 5 to 3, Graham, can you give us a bit of indication why it is 5 years, and you know what is the rationale for setting it at 5 rather than you coming to this committee and bringing us 3 years? And I just want to make sure we're not treating this business any differently to other things of a similar nature. Is it the norm for 5 years across other people, and we're going to inhibit them through 3 years? What's the rationale behind that?
Yes, Councillor. If there's any additional things I'm missing, I'll ask Amelia to come in and help me if there is. Initially, there was discussions for a couple of years, and some of these discussions happened before the pandemic. We looked at a 2-3 year permission on this. The pandemic's changed things. The event has been able to operate within that, but I don't, part of the funding for this in terms of bank loans, etc., like that, the terms of things have changed, and equally it's something that was proposed by them, and I thought obviously in terms of its impact, if we're controlling this through all the various conditions, that could be another reason as well that we say, well, we could extend that beyond that. Ultimately, there's nothing from our side that suggests we always go for 5 years. It's something that is kind of appeared through the application and is until this point not really been something we've had any concerns about. But ultimately, I think I can understand why members may be focusing in the direction they are, and there'll be no objections from officers in that regard. So if I've missed anything, Amelia, is that all right? Yeah, I'll let you.
Amelia, do you want to just quickly come back on that one?
Great, thank you. So originally the 2 years was to allow for the monitoring of highways and noise post decision of the application, but actually as the monitoring took place during the application of both noise and highways impact, it was felt that that monitoring had happened and therefore additional years could be placed for the temporary permission, if that makes sense. So rather than the monitoring taking place post-decision, which then would allow the local authority to then sort of decide what would happen after that, the monitoring has taken place, so we felt that 5 years was more reasonable.
Okay, Craig. So, Patricia, I'm just going to bring Kevin in and then I'll come back to you. You did have your hand up, Kevin, didn't you? Yeah.
I did, Chair, but having listened to the applicant, I'm happy with the response given.
Thank you. Patricia, back to you.
Yeah, just to say, I think it would be expedient of us to put a time limit on the roadworks that need to be done. Say 6 months, something like that, if everybody agrees. I think that's fair. Just so that we know that is going to be done and not left.
Thank you, Patricia. Can we just bring Phil in on that and he just give us an overview on the traffic, because I believe there already is a time frame in place for to put it in place.
I mean, it would make sense to have it in before the next event or as close to the next event as possible. So I think we'd put a time limit on for as soon as possible.
Yeah, Councillor, it's already in for 6 months from the date of this decision. It's a balance between getting it in time for the first event and also, getting through the requirements of drawings being approved through our Highways Authority and getting that there. So that's in there with 6 months on the condition from the date of any decision, and that will be from today. So thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Graham. And Carl, did you want to come back in on that?
Chair, it was just on the timescales for the temporary planning permission, really, and I think as the applicant hasn't outlined any economic reasons or impact that it would have on the viability of the attraction, and I'm happy to withdraw my proposal and support the one from Councillor Moist.
Thank you for that, Carl. Appreciate it. So, therefore, you've finished speaking. If that's it. So we have a mover, is Councillor Bill Moist, and a seconder is Councillor Mike McGaughan for a three-year period, along with the conditions already attached in there. Have a show of hands, all those in favour? That's unanimous. Thank you, everybody, for that. Excuse me, Bill, it's possible to speak your microphone off. Switch it off. Cheers. Second application is reference DM/21/04293/FPA, Larchington Water Treatment Works, Cotherstone and Barnet Castle. Second application is for the installation of a below-ground pipeline from Larchington Water Treatment Works to Shildon Service Reservoir and associated works, including temporary construction compounds, pipe bridge, lagoons, pipe lay-down areas, vehicle accesses and above-ground ancillary structures at Larchington Water Treatment Works, Cotherstone and Barnet Castle. We have two registered speakers for this application. I'll now ask Claire Teasdale, Principal Planning Officer, to present the report, which is at pages 23 to 82 of your papers pack. Over to you, Claire.
Thank you, Councillor Bell. The application site covers approximately 317 hectares and comprises mainly of agricultural land with some small pockets of woodland and watercourses. It's a large geographical area, given it's for a linear pipeline with approximately 30 kilometres in length. Also included in the application boundary, as Councillor Bell said, are areas to facilitate the development, including site compounds and lay-down areas. The pipeline itself goes from Lartington to Shildon, and it passes several small villages and farms, and it's located to the north of Barnet Castle. The detail of the route is set out in paragraph 1 of the report, as well as the designations within the route and within the vicinity of it. We have an aerial photograph of the route, which I appreciate looks a little bit like a patchwork, given the scale of it. Details of the proposal are set out in paragraphs 15 to 27 of the report. And there are three elements to the proposed development. The first two elements being permanent features comprising the mains pipeline and the River Tees and the Olwen Beck crossings. The third element is the temporary construction works, which would be removed once the development is complete. It's anticipated that the construction and restoration would last for 34 months, and this would range from October 2022 to August 2025, but it is expected that all works would be completed by March 2025. In terms of representations, the consultations and views received are set out in paragraphs 63 to 89 of the report, along with details of the publicity that's been undertaken, and this included the posting of 5,802 neighbour notification letters. We've had no objections from statutory and internal consultees, subject to conditions where appropriate, and in total we've had 7 representations, 2 objections, 1 letter representing 8 households, 1 letter of support, and 4 letters commenting on the applications. In terms of objection, the headliners were issues relating to the principle of the development, ecology and trees, residential amenity, highways and transport and other matters. The letter of support came from Cotherstone Parish Council. Of the 4 comments we've received, 2 are from friends of Stockton and Darlington Railway and 2 are from neighbouring landowners. These 2 were not referred to in paragraph 81 of your report, but I'll give you a summary of those. In terms of the Friends of Darlington and Stockton Railway, they request that works don't interfere with the bicentenary celebrations in 2025. And with regards to the comments from the neighbouring landowners, one raised concerns regarding the potential damage to unadopted highways and a bridge crossing a beck at Mayor Lane, Cotherston, and a query who would repair any damage. The second has no overall objection to the scheme, but requests adjustments to the application relating to the position of a works compound at Lartington and restriction of working hours in this location. In summary, planning law requires planning applications to be determined in accordance with the development plan unless material considerations indicate otherwise. And the NPPF, as you're aware, is a major consideration in planning decisions. This development would provide additional water capacity and resilience to the existing water network serving County Durham and Teesside, replacing a Victorian-era essential infrastructure. The works themselves involved the replacement of a strategic trunk mains pipeline set within a below-ground trench and run from Lartington to Shildon. Once constructed, the existing Victorian-era pipeline would be abandoned below ground. Consideration has been given to the principle of the development as well as to other matters, including residential amenity, access, highways, recreational amenity, and the other matters included in the report and on the slide. And subject to appropriate conditions where appropriate, the impacts are considered to be acceptable. Consideration has also been given to the impact on the AONB, the AHLV and cultural heritage, and the public benefits of the scheme are considered to be sufficient to outweigh any harm. The proposal has generated limited public interest, with representations having been weighed along those with others received from statutory consultees who have raised no objections. And whilst mindful of the public representation, it's considered that these aren't sufficient to outweigh the planning judgment in favour of the proposed development. And it is considered that the proposal does accord with relevant policies of the County Durham Plan and relevant sections of the NPPF. I therefore recommend that the application be approved subject to the conditions set out in the report, but with the addition of a requirement in Condition 4 for a public rights-of-way management plan, and that would be a new point 20 within that list. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Claire. We do have two registered speakers of the application who have informed me that should there be no objectors speaking, then they would be pleased to answer questions rather than speaking in support of the application. Mr. Kettlewell and Mrs. Welsh, is that correct? Thank you very much for that. With the committee. Yes, Craig.
Chair, this is a major piece of infrastructure, and you know, if we didn't put it in place, I think there'd be very big issues for, you know, we need to make sure that we connect our communities and make sure they've got the right utilities, particularly in our rural areas who often feel cut off with, you know, they probably don't have a gas supply and stuff like that. And if they didn't have a water supply, I think there'd be even more chaos. I really do welcome the fact that there's conditions in here to make sure that we are protecting public rights of way, because as we all know, in these kind of places, the big tourist draw is predominantly walkers, so that we're protecting that industry while this infrastructure work's going on. I can't see a reason to object to this, so I'll propose that we go along with the officer's recommendations and approve this.
Thank you for that, Craig. Yes, Sam, after you.
Thanks, Chair. It's a no-brainer, this one, and I'll second Councillor Martin's for approval.
Thank you for that, Sam. Any further comments from the committee on that? If that's the case, can we have a show of hands in support of the application? Thank you. That's unanimous and approved. That concludes today's business. Thank you for all your attendance. Many thanks.